are we as a group? Who's showing up in this moment in time? You know, and our alchemy is gonna, and our listening is going to call out something unique in this moment that won't be called out in any other moment. You know, so it's a nice moment just to tune in and look around and look in each other's eyes and peer into each other's homes and see what's there. So welcome. What I'm going to invite you to do is just to presence yourself. So I'm going to invite us to take 3 nice deep breaths together, and then I'm going to take you off mute and invite you just to speak your name. So some of us, we're going to speak our names on top of each other. It's going to be okay. I'm asking you just to speak your name, nothing more, okay? What we're doing is we're merely calling our presence into this space and beginning to our process of welcoming Alika. We're so excited that he's with us today. And all right, so inviting you to close your eyes and just maybe just begin with an exhale, exhaling out all the energy, all the what has already come today, just letting it go. As you inhale, inhaling as if every pore in your body can receive the gift of this day, the gift of this life, the gift of this moment through every being, every part of your being. And then just exhaling. Those of you who are joining, we're just calling ourselves into presence by speaking our name out loud. We have ourselves on gallery view and are just taking this moment to enter in by seeing and hearing who's in our collective today. What a pleasure. Here we are again, take 2. You are a committed crew to be with us today. And it is my joy and my pleasure to introduce you to Alika Atay. I met him, we couldn't exactly remember how many years ago, but about 7 years ago. And he is and was a very prominent and influential leader in the GMO, genetically modified crops I don't know, freedom from, I think maybe is the correct term to really make a claim for health and wellness and well-being, and standing up to Monsanto on his island of Maui. And he is a organic farmer, and he is a leader in his community, and he's going to be speaking to us about the indigenous perspective of what it is to come into relationship with your land. He's going to go over some cleansing rituals as you prepare yourself for that sacred act of gardening, and how to prepare your body, your mind, your spirit, the land, and how to be in relationship with the lunar cycles. And he's known as Uncle Alika to those who get to share life with him in the day-to-day. And it's just my absolute honor to get to be with you. And as we're listening, you know, we're gathering in the container of sanctuary, right? That's the name of what's calling us together into walking towards what does it mean to see story as a sanctuary that we can create for others, and how are we hold sanctuary within, and how do we prepare ourselves for such a great task, and understanding that we are in the language of metaphor, the language of the spirit. Spirit speaks through metaphor. So we're speaking about gardening in the physical sense, and we're speaking about ourselves as gardeners in the metaphorical sense too. So I invite you to listen deeply for all the parts and all the different ways that can be come through to you through this gift of Alika with us today. Hello, Alika, thank you. Welcome.
Mahalo. Hello. Once again, my name is Alika. I'm here just very honored for this opportunity to share thoughts and share mana'o of wherever our ancestors will take us. I want to thank everyone who were present the other day, and to understand that that was an example of our relationship that we have with our ancestors, or those of the spirit world. I began my day earlier with these chants and then I'll share this chant again, once again with you folks. This chant is to all of us, for all of us, to cleanse ourselves, to hiuvai, to bless your physical, mental, and spiritual being, to prepare yourself, to empty your cup so that we have room to fill it. To begin. Him. Ebu na moy moy ana pu no no na homia. Ebu na moy moy ana pu no no na homia. Emu na moy moy a. Emu. Ele. Ya e noa kahonua. The chant says, here we are, Emu na moi moi a. Moi moi means to sleep, but a is you sleep with your body resting, but you're wide awake, staring in a state of constantly thinking, constantly processing, tossing. Emu na moi ino is tossing and turning your body. And these are things that we all carry. These are things that we burden ourselves with, and we carry it on our shoulders into our sleep. When in Hawaii, when people go diving for food and spear diving, there's a tiny little fish that usually darts on the side of your goggle as you're looking for the big fish for food. But there's tiny little fish that pester you, bother you. And so the kauna, or the hidden meaning, or the double meaning, is that we all have tiny little things that just bother us every day. He mu na moi moi a, he mu na homia. Na homia is closet-like. We all have things that sit in the closet. And so the final lines is ele ele, yeah, let's cut it. All these things that bother us, all these things that hold us back, all these things that we must no longer harbor. And so at this moment, we are saying, please release this and let it be free so that you are now cleansed and prepared to receive. And that's the ceremony that we call the cleansing chant, or the cleansing ceremony, to get rid of, to let go. And I believe that to do that, you must do that on a daily basis so that you can walk light throughout the day. Our ancestors are here. I don't know if you can hear the dropping of the raindrops that are right above me in this tent. Nature, or manifestations through nature, is the method that our ancestors choose to communicate to us. This raining right now that has just occurred is a message to me of them saying, we are present, we are with you. The Hawaiians have a saying called Po'ailona. And Po'ailona is signs of nature, where your ancestors are communicating to you through manifestations of nature. It can come in the different forms of wind, gusting wind, sideways, piecing wind. or it can come like a gentle breeze that tickles the back of your ear. Behau breeze. And these are your ancestors communicating with you. They'll come through the wind, come through the rain, come through the rainbow, double rainbow, triple rainbow. They will come through different other animals, whether it be porpoises or whales or sharks or birds or hawks. These are things that we live with and must pay attention to. So you too must be aware that you do not stand, nor do you walk alone. You got here to this very moment for whatever reason that motivated you to make it a point to be here joining us. You must also accept that your ancestors are guiding you down this path every day to be at this moment. So with that, just reminded myself to also do another opening chant before I can go forward. And this chant is the beckoning of our ancestors. Enatu naivi otamotu mauyokama. Enatu puna puna kahiko mauyokama. Ianapua mauyokama na kikioketai. We beckon Akua, we beckon God, we beckon all the gods in Atua. Na Ivi Otamotu is, we beckon the bones of our islands, all those who walk this land. In Tupuna. Tupuna is all of our grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents. Tupuna Kahiko. Kahiko is ancient ones, many generations before us that also walked this land. We're beckoning all of their mana, all of their spirit, and all of that spiritual essence that they hold. We all say, here we are. Here we are, the children of the sea. I say this because I will share that I stand here or sit here not by myself. And the words that get shared is not of only me, but the words are from my ancestors, for they are in this meeting also. They are present at all times. They guide us and stand with us to help us, assist us, warn us in things that we do or plan to do. A few minutes ago, I mentioned about Ho'ailona. Ho'ailona is communication of signs of our ancestors through manifestations of nature. And it's one thing for you to recognize that is a Ho'ailona. Normally, it's something that is not normal in an everyday occurrence. They may come as birds, they may come as specific birds, or they may come as any white bird. And so as you're driving along and you see a bird hovering, you must reflect that that is your tutu, or that is your grandmother, or that is your ancestor that is flying along with you. And so that you can say it, oh, Ho'ailona. But then now you must interpret, what is that sign, or what is that signal, or what is that message that my ancestor is telling me? I'm pretty sure many of you, if you're so in tune with the world of spirituality, you do also have many visits like that, and you recognize it, and you recognize their presence, but now you need to go to the next level. What are they communicating? What are they telling you? What are they warning you? Some simple things. I created my own interpretation way of practicing. Sometimes I see a bird, a white bird, and they come flying along with me as I'm driving down the road. And I notice, oh, the white bird is here. Oh, what direction is the white bird going? The bird is going with me. And so I would interpret that as whatever project I'm working on, whatever decision that I'm pondering on, whatever relationship that I'm currently getting involved in, whether it be personal or business, yeah, I am ready to interpret their sign. And so if I see this bird that's flying with me in the same direction, and in fact sometimes zooms ahead, that is telling me that this is an affirmative type of relationship. This confirms your thinking of a decision of a business path that you may be pondering, and that's the affirmation that you will also interpret and heed. Now, on the flip side, I've seen the bird come across directly in front of me and crossing my path. Then my process of interpretation comes to exercise caution. Yeah, this relationship, this venture that we're thinking of, that bird coming directly sideways and across of your path, I interpret it to move with caution. And there's been days on the flip side of where the bird came in front of me and flew back the opposite direction. I definitely interpreted that as a big no, whatever you are. And so many meetings, business meetings that I enter on a physical self, have already determined, those results were already determined before I entered the room and began the meeting, because I heed the warnings. I heed and use Hawaiian, yeah, the communication from our ancestors of the spirit world. And so that brings us to farming. That brings us to where we are in growing and gardening of food. Those of us who choose to farm or to do the gardening or do the task of growing food, yeah, how many of us do that, grow food? And those of us who are growing food, we all are taking on a sacred task. And we raise our hand, said, I want to be a farmer. I want to feed the children. I want to feed my elders. And most especially, I want to feed them well. I want to feed them. I want to grow food, but most especially, I want to grow food well and healthy for the people, because it is health and wellness that we're all striving for. So the preparation started from the earlier chant, the cleansing chant, the Hemu chant, the releasing chant. That's the beginning of the cleansing. You cleanse yourself, prepare yourself to now receive. you raise your hand to do the sacred task of growing sacred food. And your goal is to grow food to feed our people, to feed the children, to feed the elders. And with pride, you present them your best. As a farmer, especially as a natural farmer, we have goals and objectives as a natural farmer. Primarily, there's three, of course, and all of you who grow in a backyard or farm have that same goal. You want to have one, the most abundant. You want to grow in abundance. Some of the crops we grow, we get measured by how many pounds we can produce in 1 acre. You know, is it 7,000 pounds, 10,000 pounds, 20,000 pounds, 30,000 pounds? And so that is the measurement of your ability to produce abundantly. And so we have natural techniques to increase abundance of your produce. And so we prepare intentionally with the thought and the focus of growing food in abundance. The second goal, the area is to always grow the largest. You know how guys are measured and they all brag from 1 acre to the next acre is who's the guy that is able to grow the biggest in size. And a lot of times it's either measured in length and width or measured in pounds, weight. And so with that, that's your goal. As you're growing the produce, you want to also produce the largest. One time, I don't know if any of you grow sweet potatoes. I grow sweet potatoes, and one of my crops, I had a 2-acre field that on average were 4 pounds. But I did have some of them at 7 and 8 pounds one potato. And out here in Hawaii, the farmer's market, they were selling it at $2 a pound. And this one elderly lady had this big potato, and we put it on the scale, and it was 7 pounds. And she wanted to buy it, and I couldn't sell it to her. And she said, why? And I said, my grandmother would not like it if I'm charging a person $14 for one potato. And I was embarrassed that I would be charging her that, but that was the going price. So we ended up settling where she got her potato at $14. And on top of that, then I gave her little extra smaller ones just to appease my mind that, but yet proudly you grow the biggest. Yeah. And that's the concept of growing the biggest so that you get paid the most. The third area of our goals of growing food is grow with the most delicious, the most flavorful. And so with that, we also have natural farming remedies and methods to enhance and bring out flavor, to produce the most tastiest of bananas, the most tastiest of mangoes, of any fruit or vegetable. We also not just want to have a lot or the biggest, we also want to have ones with good flavor, not ones with no taste. So you're judged if this is your papaya or worthy of being sought after. Oh, I want to eat your papaya because they're sweet. So those of you who do grow, I'm hoping that you do understand that's the goal that you're doing to grow food. The other part you really need to understand is that there is a role, there is a place that spirituality does exist and does contribute to the growth and production of your produce. And so it is in the space that you hold. We have a word called mana. Mana is interpretively meaning with spiritual essence. The spiritual essence from within yourself. We all, and all life forms, hold mana. We all hold spiritual energy. Now, in Hawaii, we can also interpret those who walk with good mana and also understand that there are also others that walk with bad mana. And so we rely a lot on our na'au, or the inner gut, or the inner, I don't know if you've ever had a little fluttering within your chest or gut area. Some people will let it flutter and know that it's interpreted as your intuition. But really, on the flip side of our interpretation is that is your ancestor in that relationship with you, also guiding and telling you that this person or this being that you are confronted with holds good mana or also holds bad mana or bad intentions. And so along the path that we go every day, we always cross people with good mana and people with bad mana. And so you must always be aware of that presence and how you ward yourself and shield yourself from that source of energy that comes back. So one way is to exude more. Yeah, you exude more energy, that your circle of protection is much, much more stronger than that negative energy. You know, and so I think we need to just accept that we do exist or coexist with ancestors or realms of our ancestral spiritual world, that they too are a part of you. And every day, you just, walk with the intention that you will pay attention, and they will assist in revealing or assist you in dealing with that mana. So it does play a big role in our everyday lives, and so we must address it from being well and healthy and always attentive. So that is where we are. We've gone through the cleansing chants. We cleanse ourselves. We beckon our ancestors, because we must acknowledge that we are not here by ourselves. And now that we're cleansed and our cup is empty, we are also then constantly walking and absorbing and bringing and filling in our cup for the day. Once again, I said that we all choose to grow food and because of that, we're choosing to grow and do a sacred task. And we have so many prayers, chants, meditations, all connected, all aiming towards good intentions of focusing on producing either specific food produce or just the entire grove, the entire garden, that your intention is you're in that space and you must keep that space with that sacred veil around it so that it can produce what you need to do. Earlier, Leah mentioned that we are to accept the alchemy that will come in when we all join. And that brightened me because that is exactly what we do or who we are. We are the alchemist of the land. We are the alchemist of the soil. And we are the alchemist for the plants. In Hawaii, I'm one of the leading practitioners and founders of this group called Hina, Hina. Hina is the acronym for Hawaiian Indigenous Natural Agriculture. And we are a group of practicing Hawaiian natural farmers. Our ancestors of Hawaii grew food on this land for several hundreds and thousands of years. They fed millions. They grew that food organically, naturally, with no chemicals, no synthetic pesticides. And they did that in abundance, in size, and in flavor. And then came this new group of farmers. They're the younger group of farmers, but I don't still understand how they were able to get labeled as conventional farmers. And I still refuse to call them conventional farmers. I just call them chemical farmers. And so there was a period of well over 125, 150 years where this type of farming was brought to the practice on our lands of Hawaii. They use poison to put on food that they will gladly harvest, turn, and serve that food to the children, or go to the senior centers and serve that chemical food to our elders. Our group strongly believes that we can, in abundance, get back to where our ancestors were in growing natural food. So in our practice of Hina, we introduce the world of spirituality. We bring the prayers and the chants into growing our food. We align our growing with Hina. Hina is the name of our goddess of the moon, the lunar goddess. Our practices were centered, or are centered, around the rising of the moon. The lunar cycle is the cycle that we follow in our planting practices or cultivating practices, closely monitoring the slight changes in each valley, from valley to valley, they are slightly different. And so those who are there, they make their adjustments for their specific area, just like how you would, should you be living on the northern latitude or the southern latitude. We're very fortunate for us to live near the equator, to where the environment is almost constant year round. But those that live far north or far south, you do see the drastic changes with nature. And so with that, you also adjust your practices as the season transitions. In our practice, we bring a lot of the prayer and chants into making everything. We gather natural sources from the environment, and we turn them into specific natural amendments or soil amendments or liquid fertilizing solutions. And all along the way, constantly having periods or points of prayer, bringing the spiritualness into making that end product of that harvest. One of the big gifts that Akua has given us is the fish and the fish waste. In the concept of our practice of Hina, or natural farming, one of the key ingredients that we use in our plants is fish amino acid, or a source of nitrogen and all of the other amino acids, microbial collections that come. In our practice, we seek the fish that go deep, deep down into the ocean. And so when they get caught and they go on to the fish market, we are there to collect the heads and the waste, because they hold the microbes of the deep sea. And in our processing of utilizing brown sugar and coating all the pieces of the fish meat or fish head or tails or bones with sugar, we create osmosis and osmotic pressure from the sugar to draw whatever enzymes that's in that matter. After about 6 months, in storing it in drums or buckets, the physical heads and bones and everything disintegrate, and the sugar extracts the liquid enzymes, and the sugar feeds the microbes that continue to break down. And after 6 months, we have liquid or water-soluble fish amino acid at a very highly concentrated form. We will strain the matter out, have a liquid. That liquid we would use on our plants at a ratio of 1 to 1,000 distribution. 1 part of the FAA, or the fish amino acid, to 1,000 parts of water. And that's our dilution rate for most of everything we do. And that is pretty much to help your plants in all stages of growth. So we try to teach our young kids and try to teach our farmers to know the cycle of vegetative plant growth. We go from a seed to the seedling, to vegetation, to flowering, to fruiting, to harvesting. And in every phase, we make solutions that are specifically to help that plant in that specific phase of growth. Just like how we look at the humans, and the same thing happens in the plants. For example, during the changeover period, when the plant is changing from growing and just producing greens and branches and bushing out, and then it starts to have little tiny buds, which will then turn to flower, which will then, the petals will dry off and fall off, and then create a fruit bud. Just in that transition period, there's a lot of necessary or needed fertilizing solutions that we apply to assist the plant growth. In Hawaii, we have, I don't know if you guys have mangoes, but the cycle of the mango is when it's coming into season, it'll produce thousands and thousands of tiny blossoms. And the goal as the farmer, once again, was to grow with abundance. So the measurement of abundance was how many mangoes can that tree produce. And so as the farmer, you look at all the thousands and thousands of blossoms that's on the tree. Or even, not even mango, let's try apples. You'll get thousands of blossoms on the tree. And the goal would be to keep every blossom on the tree. Because if that blossom doesn't fall off the tree, that blossom has an opportunity to turn to a fruit. And so the more blossoms you're able to keep on the tree, you'll have thousands of fruits. But if you don't treat it or you don't spray it, and then the wind comes along and shakes the branches, then the next morning you come out and you'll see thousands of blossoms on the ground, you've missed that opportunity to produce thousands of fruits. So knowing that, naturally we make solution to assist keeping the flowers on the tree. One of the solutions we do is we make our own water-soluble calcium phosphate. And that is through gathering bones of either beef or a cow, deer, hard bones. We take the bones and we'll either, if there's still some organic matter on it, we'll try to boil it off or barbecue it off. You just want the bones. So a good one would be to collect the leftover bones from those who make soups or broths, or you take your T-bone and enjoy the meat, and then you save the leftover bone. And our process in that is we put the bones on the barbecue grill and we char the bones. We take the bones and we try to bring out the charcoal on the bone. So we burn the bones. You burn it so that your goal is to get all the bone totally black, totally charcoal black, covered in that. If you overcook the bones will come white. You then cooked it too much. You want that charred phosphorus that is accumulated on the bones. Yes, the bones can be old, and they could be sitting out in the pasture, and go and collect the bones. I prefer either beef or deer would be the preferred bones, because they tend to become more hard. And what we're trying to do is toast or burn the bones on the grill, flip it so that all around is all dark black. Then you set it on the side. So at that stage, that bone would feel very light. Yeah, there's no organic matter on it, and so you've already burnt that off and dried it out, and so the bone will be very brittle, but dark, charred black. Set that on the side and let it cool off. You don't want to process it when the bone is still warm or hot. So what we do is we cook up a lot of the bones. We'll get enough in there, and then we'll let everything cool off. We'll come back later. With this charcoal bone, at the ratio of 50-50, we will take, we'll take a jar or a bowl or a container, fill it up with brown rice vinegar, and the ratio would be 1-10. So 10 parts of brown rice vinegar, whatever that weight is, and you'll take 1/10 of that weight of bone. And so you'll put the weight of the charcoal bone with the brown rice vinegar, and then I let the bones sprinkle into the jar filled with the vinegar. And the 1 part bones will be set in the liquid, and there will be a chemical reaction. Naturally, the vinegar will interact with the bone, and the process of bubbling is it's extracting the calcium phosphate that is in the charred portion of the bone. And so we have like a period of 4 days for this bubbling or chemical reaction to occur, and that will be transferred at the end of 4 days. We strain the liquid, in other words, just pour everything out, separate the bones, and you just end up with this liquid that is now water-soluble calcium phosphate. We now use that, just that liquid, as a concentrate. So with that, we dilute it at a rate of 1-1,000. So I normally take, a capful and put it in with a 5-gallon bucket of water, and to meet the dilution rate of 1-1,000. That solution with the 1-1,000 rate is now ready to be applied onto the plant. So the tree with all of those thousands of blossoms, you want to go and spray the tree. You want to spray the tree with a foliar mist. And the intention is to spray underside of the leaf. The leaf, one side is very green and shiny, and that is designed to repel. But if you flip it over, it's dull and is more absorbent. It has the kind of like in a microscopic side view, you would see a lot of hair-like follicles on the underside. And so they're the receivers, and so they're waiting to absorb. And so we just assist by spraying the foliar mist underside so that the uptake or the intake of this foliar mist of calcium phosphate is immediate. And so the plant will take it up immediately. That introduction of the calcium phosphate that we made is what will strengthen the connection of where the flower blossom is to the plant, to the tree. So when the wind comes, the blossoms will stay strong. They'll stand up, they'll stay on the tree, and the next morning you're not going to be discouraged and see thousands of blossoms on the ground. You've been successful in keeping the blossom on the tree. The goal was to continue abundance. And so you've achieved that goal of keeping thousands and thousands of potential fruits still alive and on the tree. Now, the growth of that is the flower petals will fall off, and then in the middle, the baby bud, you'll see a tiny little baby be born after all the petals fall. You now have a baby fruit. And so now your job is get it to be large, right? You've accomplished keeping all the blossoms on the tree so that you have thousands of fruits. Now you use fruiting. So we're going to change. I just saw a little question there. Can you use other vinegar? Yes, you can. I prefer brown rice vinegar because it has a little bit softer. It's not as hard and sometimes could burn some delicate plants. But yes, you can. You can use other vinegars, and I think those you just have to try. Yeah. We are only limited by our own inability to dream or try. So, but because we've done thousands and thousands of trying, we've come to say brown rice vinegar will give you the higher probability of being successful. But you can try other vinegars and see the result. You're still judged, by who has the most abundant, who has the largest, and then who has the most flavorful. Okay, so we've moved from best time to apply. I try to apply in the latter hours of the day, more close to sunset, so that we don't, you never know. You don't burn, I call it don't burn the plant. You don't put them on at high noon and lift that plant. So, but you can. But I try to go to the latter part of the day, closer to sunset, and then I give the plant time to absorb it and work it and not be under sunlight pressure, so that you give the plant time to absorb it, give it a full 12, 14 hours. A lot of the microbial work or the microbes we grow, whether it's in the soil or on the plants, they do their work in darkness, or they do their best work in darkness. So you want to help that to take place, in that period. What was that question? Is there a temperature? Yeah. So,
Alika, there's also two other questions that are coming through that I just want to make. I'm sure that they come through. One person is asking to explain a little bit more of the dilution rate of 1 to 1,000, if that could be explained. And then another person is asking if this foliar treatment can also be helped with other fruits like tomatoes.
Yes. Yeah, they'll apply all. What we share is we find great results on all plants. The foliar rate, 1 to 1,000. Because our natural products that we create, they are very highly concentrated. And so the other concept is this: less is more. Okay? Less is more. So something so little like 20 cc's of this concentrated fish amino acid, or 20 cc's of this concentrated calcium, water-soluble calcium phosphate. It's very concentrated, and so we need to dilute it. And we dilute it with 1,000 parts of water to 1 part of that solution. Yeah. So that's as simple as that. I've gone and I did 1,000 capfuls of water to 1 capful. So I eyeballed it and said, oh, okay, that's 5 gallons of water to 1 capful. So it's not rocket science. You know, you can use your best skills of measurements and just eyeball and say, okay, it's 1 tiny cap for 5 gallons of water. But yeah, you want to be on it, then yeah, truly measure 1 part with 1,000 parts of diluted of water dilution. Okay, where were we? Okay, we took the baby fruit. Yeah. So now the flower blossom fell off. We sprayed it. We kept them on the tree. The petals fall off, and in the middle there's going to be a tiny little baby. So you've now transitioned. You now transitioned into being a mama. Got to back up. The stage that you're in the flower, yeah, is telling you, oh, I'm transitioning and I'm going to be carrying a baby. Just like the humans, yeah, just like a young teenage or younger female that just got pregnant, yeah, and so they feel this morning sickness, the shifting. This remedy, this 1 to 1,000 solution of water soluble calcium phosphate, I believe, at a very young, the teenagers, the young females should be spritzing this into their salad, because now you start to introduce this calcium phosphate into the female's biome, and they will not suffer morning sickness because they've already been prepared for the transition of the changeover, yeah, of getting pregnant, going through this period of, I guess, prenatal, whatever that phase is, that is changing inside. This will assist. So that's what the water soluble calcium does. It moves in that change. And then now you have the baby, just like how the female went to transition to be adapting towards carrying the baby. They're now comfortable in carrying the baby. And then how to, so this is like water soluble calcium phosphate is like your prenatals for your plants. Prepare them for the changeover. Once the changeover occurs and you now have a baby, you shift to the next goal, which is to grow the largest. And to do that, we introduce calcium, liquid calcium, water soluble calcium. And so we do the same process, but a different organic matter. We go and collect in nature. Where's your sources of hard calcium? We found that the easiest source of that is eggshells. We have lobster shells, crab shells, you have different areas, you have different sources of calcium. But today, it's a lot easier to get a dozen eggs and leftover eggshells. And so that's our source of calcium. We go and get eggshells. We take the eggshells, we crack it all up and mash it all up, put them in a bowl, get it all, not super powdery, but just smaller pieces of shells, eggshells. And we'll put them in a little wok or a little frying pan and just heat it up on a medium heat. And you're not cooking the shell. You're not trying to get it black. You want to lightly brown it. But in the process, what you're trying to do is heat it up or cook it so that you separate the membrane from the shell. The organic matter that's kind of like a slight webbing, yeah, the albumin part. So we'll try to heat it up on the pan And some people normally would either sometimes blow, flip it up and blow the little fine. Well, you're going to have to cook it off. You're going to have to cook off the egg white because you don't want the egg white. You want the shell. So that's why we're cooking and getting all of the other organic matter off so that all you have left is shell and all the membranes have. So I prefer to tell people, do this. Don't do this in your house. Do it out in the backyard or in the patio because it'll start to smell like sulfur. And so it'll linger indoors in your house. So I usually do it outside in the backyard with a burner and a pan, and I get all that out in a walk. Let that cool down, or you could fill it up in a jar and let it save it for another day. What I do is sometimes I do like 100 dozens of shells all at once, and I have it all filled up in a big wok, and I just cook it up and burn off all the fillings, and then I'll just store it all in a jar, get it all ready for future use. Let's say that we've advanced and we've allowed the shell to cool off. You don't want to mix this solution when the shell is still hot or warm because you'll create a different chemical reaction. So I prefer to just let it sit, let it cool off, another day, come back and do this mixing. The same measurement, 1 part of shells, 10 parts brown rice vinegar. So get a big jar, I usually get like a gallon jar, pour the brown rice vinegar into it. Whatever the weight of the brown rice vinegar, try to match the weight at a 1:10 ratio. I sprinkle the eggshells over the top. I've done it the other way where I put the whole entire 1 part in weight of shells in the jar first, and then I poured the liquid in. You get a different reaction. You don't get the better reaction. So what you're trying to do is create this extraction of calcium. You're taking calcium that is currently sitting in a solid form, and you're creating it into a liquid form. So I found that you put the liquid brown rice vinegar in a jar and you sprinkle the shells over the top. Let it come in. You will immediately see a chemical reaction of bubbling. And the shells will be dancing in the jar. They'll be bubbling up and down. The bubbling sometimes will go on for 4 days. I usually just let it sit, let the chemical reaction does its thing and takes place. And then after a couple of days, you monitor it. I shake it up. If everything's done, everything's dead, there's no bubbling, you can do it. You do it uncovered because there's going to be releasing of gas. Yeah. But just to protect it, I usually put like a paper towel with the rubber band off the top so that the gas can still escape, but yet protect it so that no animals or ants or anything or debris can get into and contaminate that liquid. So I usually put a paper towel with a rubber band over it. Allowing that chemical exchange to occur, allowing the settling. Once everything's settled, I'll take all of that liquid that's in the jar. I use like a 5-gallon paint strainer, and I'll put the strainer over another jar and I'll pour everything in and just separate the shells from the liquid. The liquid that you get is now transferred, is now water-soluble calcium, liquid, pure calcium in the liquid form. Okay, we've now been able to convert it and switch it. I usually feed minimum once a week. You could do twice a week. and then I wouldn't do any more than that, you know. And plus, you got to understand that you're in a window of, you switch from flowers. Yeah, this works on growing flowers too. Yeah, so you'll switch from flowers to a fruit, and so you'll switch from calcium phosphate in the flower phase to calcium in the fruiting phase. And so you want to, in the young stage of the fruit, you want to apply that, but you also want to apply it all the way through till almost 1 month to 2 weeks before you know you're going to harvest. Yeah. Yeah. Your cut flowers, this is the same thing. At a certain phase, you're going to go beyond just flowering. And then if you're growing cut flowers, that's going to be your fruit that you're going to harvest. I would still introduce calcium phosphate with calcium, and that's going to make your blossom of your cut flower bigger. Yeah. You're going to have to explain to your customers why your flowers are much bigger than everybody else's. But so that's okay. Where were we? So the measurement is still the same. Now the end product, we've separated the shells with the liquid. Now you have this liquid, water soluble calcium. The application rate, the dilution rate is 1 part to 1,000. Yeah. So once again, if you're dealing with a garden, I usually use a 5-gallon bucket. I fill it up with water, and I use 20 cc's or 1 capful poured into that liquid of water, which is 5 gallons, and stir that up, and that's applied onto your plants. The application is that 1 to 1,000, depending on the size of your fields, and you know, everything can scale up. You know, you can go for backyard production, okay, what is that? The prenatal emission. Do you spray that too? Yeah, you do that too. You spray that. I would, okay, I don't know if you're asking for if the prenatal is kind of like for the human side. I would mix the dilution 1 to 1,000 and spritz it in your salad. Yeah. So then you know that you're getting your water, you're getting your calcium phosphate.
I think she's asking if that's to be done before pregnancy and preparation or during pregnancy.
Both you can do, but we found that those who do earlier don't get morning sickness. They don't experience that because their gut biome has already been introduced into that. So I would say that's part of preventive, individual preventive care into your gut biome structure. You're starting earlier, but you can, once you know, hey, I'm pregnant. Yeah, you can. That'll probably help you moving. And so same with nature. We transition from flower to fruit, right? So the 3 goals was abundance and being the biggest, right? The 3rd goal was the most tastiest, the most delicious. We turn to Mother Nature and we gather from the most simplest of places. We go to the ocean and we gather seawater. And in seawater, it holds something like 83 plus trace mineral elements. Every fruit, every vegetable knows what 3, 4, or 5 trace elements it needs for it to bring out the best of flavors that fruit or vegetable produce can produce. A banana will take down potassium or whatever. Another fruit will probably need boron. Another one would need magnesium. The ocean has it all. And somehow through nature's structure, each individual one knows which of the 83 plus minerals that the ocean holds, which ones they will take in for their continued production. And so we just offer that in the environment to the plants, and the plants will do its own uptaking. That is what we use to bring out flavor. Our application on that is an estimated time of when you're going to harvest. And so we start introducing that about 1 month before we're going to harvest. We've now gone through the tiny little baby fruiting stage. We're getting the fruit growing. It's green, getting bigger because we're putting calcium. And now we want to start focusing on flavor. And so we'll bring in the ocean water. The formula or the ratio is 1 to 30. I just answered your question, yeah? Diluting the seawater. We dilute the seawater at 1 part to 30 parts of fresh water. I usually go and gather gallons. The thing about the seawater too is the longer you store it, the more potent it gets. So, it's okay. You go, maybe you're not near the ocean, yeah? And so, guys in Korea, they send their trucks, their water trucks, to the ocean and drive all the way back to their farms, and they store it on their farm because they use the seawater in that process. So for those of you not near an ocean, then you can use seawater. I don't know the name of that, but there are products that are crystallized sea, and you just gotta get it into the water, dilute it up. But for us, for those of you who live far from the ocean, there are you can look at dried seawater crystals and get a bag of that, and they'll mix it up with the liquid and get it to a form. But for those of us who have access to the ocean, you can gather. I live 4 houses from the beach, so on a weekly basis, I send my son down, hey, I need a couple gallons of ocean water, and so they'll go and get it. We try to get it from clean spots. Another location, if you are near the ocean, is to follow the mountain streams and look for the spot where the mountain freshwater stream lands in the last pond before the wave crashes into that pond. That's now becoming brackish. That's another good collecting point, because now that's you've brought microorganisms from the fresh aquatic life side, and you brought microorganisms from the marine life side, and they're in that pond that's just adjacent to the breaking wave. And so we collect there, or we collect in the ocean. Another spot to collect is in those ponds in the corner. You'll see a lot of seaweed growth, a lot of kelp growth. You want to collect near the kelp and that ocean vegetation. You collect near there. Those are all interesting sources to collect because they bring different microbes into your solution. Once again, the measurement is 1 part seawater, 30 parts water. So I use a half of a bottle, that one small water bottle. I think that's 10 ounces, 11 ounces. I use half of that as seawater. pour that into 5 gallons of fresh water. Let me store it better. Okay, so yeah, I just store the ocean water separately and wait to mix it with the fresh. The others, they're already diluted, they're already concentrated. You can put them on the shelves and they should be able to last a year or more because they're already set and stabilized. Same thing. Yes, same thing in the application in the spraying. All of these mixtures and all of these solutions in the liquid form can be applied as fertigator. In other words, you can water it straight into the soil and you can irrigate it and fertilize it through the lines. So some people just divert the solution into the water lines and just fertigate it out into their fields. So it's okay. You can irrigate and use the solutions through the root system, but the uptake is immediate when you do the foliar spray. And so we alternate. We'll do one day into the roots, then another day we'll spray into the leaves. And once again, as a reminder, yeah, you can water the leaves, but the plant will do the uptake more from the underside or the dull side of the leaf. So when you spray, create the mist, you want to get under and spray up towards the middle of the tree so that the tree will take it up and absorb it quickly. So I've covered those three. The solution to make abundance, the solution to enlarge it, and the solution to bring flavor. In between, we have another solution that we use that we call LAB, lactic acid bacteria. And we do that by first utilizing washed rice water. Every one of you who cook rice, we cook rice. We take the white rice, which has a lot of talc, and we wash that, but we don't throw that water away. The first part, when you got the dried rice, getting the water in there, we'll massage it and try to get all that talc off as you're washing that rice. Then we'll pour that liquid out. I pour that liquid out into another bowl and then set that on the side and then go back and finish washing and cooking the rice. I'll come back to that bowl of just washed rice water and I'll take it and set it out in the backyard or in the back patio, out in the environment. What you're doing is you will now be able to collect microbes from the air that circulates that bowl. And so you don't want to do it in the house and put it on the counter because all you're doing then is collecting microbes from yourself or bacterial microbes from yourself. You want to be able to collect microbes from your natural world. So we will place it normally under a tree or under a garage so that the air from the environment can that. We leave that 48 hours, 2 days. In 2 days, that washed rice water will start to convert and come alive. And if you go longer, then it just becomes too old and just plain not effectively strong. Just that alone, just that washed rice water. Many folks will wash the rice and then they'll pour it on their flowers. It's still fresh. You want to let it sit You want to let it inoculate itself. Let it sit for 48 hours. Then put them on your plants. That'll be more vigorous in the plant growth. Just that alone, that's simple. Washed rice water is a simple fertilizer that nature gives us. And so we call that indigenous microbes stage 1. And just that alone. My mother used washed rice water religiously on her orchids. And she would let it sit, and then she would just dilute or add more water and pour it on her orchids or spray it on her orchids. The colors were very vibrant and bold. Her purples were bold purples. Yellows were vibrant yellows. So just that simple fertilizer of washed rice water is an effective natural fertilizer. However, we'll take that stage up. We'll take 1 part of the washed rice water and mix it with 10 parts of milk. Whole milk, organic milk, least pasteurized milk that you can get. Same thing. We'll pour the milk into a jar, 10 parts of milk, 1 part of washed rice water that's been aged 48 hours. Okay, don't make fresh washed rice water. You're not going to get that reaction. You want it inoculated and aged, and then you're going to mix it into the milk. Cover the jar, let it breathe. So I put a paper towel, rubber band, letting the air exchange to occur, but not allow any ants or bugs or flies to get in it. You will see the change and that chemical reaction to take place. And you will see that what you're creating is the curd or the whey. Yeah. So you'll see the liquid separate. At the top will be floating is the whey, and the bottom will be the sediment, the curds. In the middle is the liquid. That liquid you'll see is kind of like a yellowish green in color. You either can do this. You can take a syringe and extract just the liquid and leave the curd or the cheese looking thing alone and just try to get all that liquid. That liquid is lactic acid bacteria. Yeah. And that's the bacillus that we use. So now you have a concentrated LAB in that form. And once again, our ratio is 1 part of that to 1,000 parts of water. I guess you could start with sour milk. With this current situation of COVID, and no one's traveling here, no visitors, so the restaurants are all shut down. Well, the producers of milk here are dairy. They're dumping pallets and pallets of milk because the consumption is not there, but the production is still there. So we take those milk and we tell them, don't dump it. That's, what is one man's trash is our natural farmers' goal. So we collect, 6-7 pallet loads of milk, and we try to convert that over and turn that into LAB. When do we use LAB? LAB is kind of like, on the human side, those weightlifters, those bodybuilders, those guys that train like that, their diet they use is to make weight. Yeah, they do that powdered milk, and they because that is, they believe, would open up their vascular muscles to allow them to get elastic and get bigger in bulk. Well, the same thing is going on when we apply LAB to the plants. So the ideal time for the application of LAB is when the plants are in just past seedling and in the vegetative growth stage where they're just growing and producing. So you're just green. And so application of LAB at 1 part to 1,000 will encourage the tree or the plant to bush out, to get larger. And so it'll help increase the branches, increase the girth, and the sturdy structure of the plant. So we apply LAB in the early stages of growth and up to, through flowering, up to very young fruit. Yeah, like maybe no more, I would say don't go no more than 1 week into fruiting. So if you already have a tree with a tiny fruit, you can apply LAB, but don't go anymore, because LAB takes away flavor, takes away smell, takes away scent. So if you're farming flowers that should be smelling sweet, don't apply LAB in the near harvesting stage. You want to apply ocean water, because that will bring out flavor, bring out scent. But if you applied LAB, you'll take away flavor, take away scent. That is all. It's just a fertilizer that is focused when the plant is in the vegetative growing stage to make it be more robust. Okay, I'll use an example. My father always ate my papaya, and he knew that I had the most tastiest of papaya. So every morning he would have a papaya, a strawberry papaya. One morning he said, "Whose papaya is this?" I said, "Mine." He goes, "This is not your papaya. It tastes junk. There is no flavor." And I was puzzled, because I knew that papaya came from the very same tree that he always ate his papaya from. Then I thought about it. I said, oh, the day before I was spraying LAB onto a young mountain apple tree that I wanted to get to bush out. When I sprayed it, I think the spray or the mist drifted up into the papaya, and it went under the papaya leaves, and so the papaya immediately took up the LAB. But by taking up the LAB, it got rid of flavor and taste. And that was a papaya fruit that I harvested and gave to my dad. So I was kind of confused, and then I thought, oh, I wonder if that's what happened. So then I went back and mixed up. Goes back to the statement of, we're the alchemist. So I went back and mixed up the seawater solution, and I sprayed it on the papaya tree. And the next morning, I harvested the papaya, gave it to my dad, and then he goes, "Yeah, this is your papaya." So that showed me the uptake and intake is immediate. Example that a mistake of letting LAB drift to the fruiting tree changed and got rid of flavor. And then to correct it, sprayed the ocean, and the next morning it flipped back and brought back flavor. The uptake of the foliar spray by spraying under the leaves is almost immediate. So now you become just like a sniper, pinpointing, what does that plant need? I have the solution. Yeah, a natural homemade remedy of that. I got to remind you also, all along the way, you are in prayer with reverence. Remember what I said in the beginning. We raise our hand to do the sacred task of growing sacred food. So in that practice, in that realm, we are still focused in always holding and introducing the spiritual energy of our intention. That's the focused intention of why you do this. So you acquire that spiritual energy, acquire that spiritual intent for all your actions that you're doing. You are in a state of pule, in a state of prayer. We do many chants, but here's a sample of the chant that we call upon the greater being to give us guidance, to give us power, to give us energy to focus for this. E ho mai kai mai luna mai e una no una mele e ho mai e ho mai e ho mai e ho mai kai mai luna mai una mea una no una mele e ho mai e ho mai e ho mai This is the prayer that we're calling upon Akua, or the greater being, to give you guidance full of blessings. And so, do we pray? Yes, we do. We have a relationship with our ancestors and Akua, and they all come into work together. Earlier I mentioned the connection of Hina, or the moon goddess, or the lunar cycle. As a grower of food, we incorporate the cycles of the moon. Many of you are gardeners, so many of you are familiar of the waxing of the moon and the waning of the moon and the cycles we go through. For us, because majority of our lives are always outdoors, we rely on nature and the environment and the weather. When we plan events, like a wedding, we make it so that you have the highest percentage of chance for great success. And so we'll try to schedule our big events close to, on, or near the full moon. And if not the full moon, on and or near the new moon. So these are the two cycles that highly probable that you will have successful weather that is aligned for your event. You don't want to get married, in the middle of a quarter moon shift, and that's when you're going to get inclement weather, a lot of rain. So I tell everyone, you want to do an outdoor camping trip, you want good weather, plan it around the full moon, because more than likely, not 100% guarantee, but 80% guarantee that you'll have better weather for your activity. So that is also aligned as to when we do our planting. And so we do follow the moon. We've just this morning, for those of you experienced what happened the other day, and we just came out of Kane, the night of Kane, and we just entered at the rising of the moon, the day of Lono. Lono is recognized as the god of agriculture. But these are two back-to-back sacred nights set aside for our ancestors and Akua. I don't know if you can hear this right now, but it's just started to rain. And it's hitting me on the pen. That's just an acknowledgement of what I just was stating, is they're acknowledging their physical presence and telling me that's right. You're here because of them. And so we honor them, and they are here. Yeah. And we being farmers, they are very important to us. And they're here. Today is Hilo. Hilo is the new moon. It's a new day, new beginning, new month. Hilo is a time when you enter new relationships, new partnerships, new endeavors. Hilo is a time where you plant seed. Yeah. So this is for the next 4 days are all excellent times to be planting, and the next 3 days after that are still good days. But the excellent days is now. We're going into that. If you're starting things from seed, this is the period that we go in. This is the beginning of new endeavors, and you grow with that. The cycle, will go, and then on a waning, there's a period of what we call ole days, and these are days that are not ideal for planting. You could, for those of you, you could probably just Google and find a Hawaiian lunar calendar, and they will have you, the current day and year 2020, and they will give you the cycle of the moon and the days that we are in. A lot of folks, religiously follow that cycle. And so when the cycle shares that we're in a ole day or a ole or nothing, that's telling us these are not good days to be planting, but are good days to be doing other chores like weeding, cultivating, doing other chores around the farm other than planting. Unlike Western conventional / chemical farmers, they just follow a Western calendar and say, hey, Monday through Friday, I got to plant, boom, 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 irregardless of what phase the moon is in. That was my brother. My brother was working for the sugar plantation, and he was in charge for, 12,000 acres in their production, but they worked every day and they just planted. And I said, why do you waste energy? Why do you waste energy and not focus on the days that are good to plant? You will generate equal to or more in production if you had planted on those days than if you just haphazardly planted. And he said, yeah, I know that, but they refused to listen to me, so he just allows them, and so they continuously went on to not producing good sugar. He knows it, he knew it, but that's his job. So he just, and that's where we differ in our practices and our delivery of growing food.
Alika, I have a question around planting, because very soon those of us who are engaged in this class of sanctuary will be doing rituals with seeds, and in terms of working with our intentions, and I was curious if you had any additional guidance around working with seeds, rituals, specifically around healing.
Same thing as with the plant, same thing, it's your intention. Same similar chants as what I previously shared. And it also depends on the produce and what the history. The biggest thing is, do we have history with the food that we eat? Do we have history with the farmer? Do we know his practice? Do we trust his practice? Because I'm going to eat his food. And so the history is, what is our relationship with the farmer? What is his or her relationship with the Aina, with the soil?
We are alchemists of the soil. We are alchemists of the plants. And so along the way, we have secret rituals and prayers that we do. But no matter what the prayer is, it's you. It is your intention. And no matter what language it is you. Yeah. The plant, the seed, the water, they all get memory. Yeah. In fact, I had a discussion with some of the guys growing the other night, and we talked about playing music for the plants. You know, they have memory. They know patterns. They know aloha. They know who enters their realm with good mana, good spiritual essence of aloha. And if you walk with aloha, you exude aloha. And so the plants feel that mana and produce because of that mana. You walk and you carry and resemble that mana that the plants will absorb. Yes, there are seedlings, there are solutions. We make a special solutions for seedlings. Mainly, we soak the seeds in the solution for 20 minutes, and that's just basically to physically allow the coating of the seed to not be as hard and allow the sprout to be able to push through. Yeah, but every seedling, every seedling must experience the struggle, must experience that energy and burst to break through that shell of seed or to break through that ground. You make them easy. You make them easy, and he no gotta work. The plant get lazy, and he not gonna be. You gotta build just like how we build children. You gotta build good, strong character in them. You gotta make them feel it, make them work for it. Don't give them baby spoon feed them. Yeah, same way. Yeah, you're gonna assist the plant to grow, but it also needs to experience that breakthrough of that shell to come. Because when he does that, he also sets his roots broader. Yeah, because he exerted energy. That little sprout, as simple as that. You gotta watch, go watch. Watch the seed open. Find that very second that seed came to life and he stretched his roots. The harder he struggled to get through that shell, the wider his root base reached out because he had to get it set so he could stand. Same. So wherever you are, whatever country you are, whatever language you are, you have your own intended, focused, ritualistic prayers and chants already. You already have it innately. Yeah. You just gotta let it come. Let it come out. Yeah. Let it be free. Bring that's within you to come out. Yeah, we're in that cycle. This is the period of planting. This is the period of new beginnings. And as much as you can plant seeds, it's also a good time to transplant. It also depends on the cycle of what you're planting. So if you're planting a fruit tree, anything that will bear fruit, a tree that will bear fruit, then, it's connected to closer to the full moon also. So I usually target 4 days arriving the full moon and 2 days after the full moon. So that 7-day window is my planting period for fruit trees, because the hua or the fruit is what we're trying to produce. So the growth of the moon, that's like the fruition. That's the big fruit. And so in that natural planting, you're encouraging your fruit tree to align itself with the lunar cycle of the moon that will be bearing fruit. Very fruitful period. The big full moon is the fruition period of the cycle of the month. So we try to help that. If we targeted specifically fruiting trees, I try to plant it like 4 days going in and no more than 2 days coming out. That is the window for fruiting trees. Yeah. Leah, what's the other questions?
And I'll just say we have about 5 minutes left for any questions, and then we'll do a time when everyone gets to speak and anchor in what they're taking away and what they're learning. Let's see here. Some of the questions are, someone, Kariana wanted to know about compost.
Oh yes, we compost.
I had a question about if you use seaweed on top of as a top layer on in the gardens at all. And
yeah, you can. We just mix everything. We just a little bit of everything. We look for we can do fish waste. We've done seaweed. We'll I don't know what's happening, but our shorelines used to be so abundant with seaweed. Now you walk the shoreline and a lot of the traditional seaweeds, we are people of the ocean, and so we are people of the intertidal zone. So when the high tide comes up, well, we have four tide changes, and so when we have the high, it goes way up, it brings everything, and then it varies from the low. So it could go 20 feet, 30 feet into the water. So that is the intertidal zone. It probably cover a big, could be 100 feet distance from the highest high water mark to the lowest low water mark. But in that zone, the intertidal zone, we gather food. I mean, there's probably 100 species of food for us. And so we go and we gather the different seaweed. Interesting to note, on Maui, I noticed that, we have a lot of different cultures. We have Japanese, we have Filipino, we have Samoan, we have Micronesian, and aside from the Hawaiians. So, and they're all ocean people, and they all gather people. So they all go to the same beach on the intertidal zone to gather food and delicacies that they crave for. But interesting that each ethnic race uses 6 to 7 different seaweeds in their dishes. And some of them, what one culture or race considers, that's rubbish. Another one cherishes it, So they all intermix and know which ones they want to gather, which ones they want to prepare for food. So, I'm what's going on in the health of our ocean waterways does affect us here in the islands. I mean, just the ocean debris is just constantly amassing on our shorelines. And with that affects the availability of the different kinds of seaweed or kelp or whatever is available to us. But yeah, getting back to the compost, yeah, we use seaweed if we have it. There was a period where every day a certain type of kelp would wash ashore, and so a lot of the folks in the condominiums, the visitors, they would complain of the smell, and so our guys would gladly go down there and remove it and take it, to apply it in composting piles. But yeah, in our practice, we do incorporate composting. We make a lot of micros. I didn't cover our critical microbe, which we call IMO, indigenous microbial organisms. We gather those microbes from the inner, higher, pristine native Hawaiian forest. You got to stop and think. Who fertilizes the forest that allows it to grow and thrive? Akua, our ancestors. And so we hike up there and we go and gather the microbes from the forest. We find that for growing of food, we need and we have better results when we utilize beneficial fungi. And so we go and collect, not just from what's around on the lowlands. We're just collecting bacteria from grass. We need wood. We need stuff from the forest. And so we go into the upper forest and collect microbes from the inner forest, bring them down to where we're at on the farm. By adding sugar or brown sugar, we feed the microbes, and we are able to exponentially multiply the microbes that we collected. And we were trying to create a fungal dominant soil. And so we get a source of carbohydrate, a source of compost, and a source of wood from the forest, whether it be wood chips or mulch, coming from branches and leaves of trees. We're not only taking mulch from grass clippings, we want collections. And the ideal too is to have a multiple and diverse collection of trees and mulch so that we integrate a bigger collection of multiple microbes. Sugar feeds the microbes. The microbes feed the soil. The soil will feed the trees. And so a lot of times, when I was growing up, I never connected it because I always looked at it from a cultural, spiritual application. My grandmother would say, you plant a tree, you also plant a stalk of sugarcane. So I always thought it was a ritual, right? Plant the tree, plant the stalk, bury the fish head under the tree. It was all, from my young stage, was cultural. But it wasn't until later that I connected the science that, I'm feeding them nitrogen. I'm feeding them fish amino acid. Oh, I got the sugar because the sugar is feeding the microbes. But as simple as that, the elders don't give you the answer. They just tell you the motion. It's for you to find that moment of aha, that aha moment, because that's why we're doing this. Yeah? So same here, you probably ask yourself, well, why am I doing this? We got to go back. We're all here. We're all here. We're all here. We all get the same, no matter what part of the world we are, no matter how old we are, whether we're old or whether we're young, no matter what color skin we are, we all have the same goal in life. And that goal is to become a great ancestor. You must look within yourself and ask yourself, am I worthy so far of my life's accomplishments? Am I worthy to be labeled a great ancestor? And that question of worthiness is going to be answered by those who are yet to be born. In your line, your ancestral line, they will look back and say, my grandmother, my great-grandfather was a great ancestor. That's why we're all here, finding our role, finding our path. We're all on the same journey. We get just different paths.
Alika, thank you, thank you, thank you for your generosity and breadth of knowledge and wisdom and earned wisdom, earned knowledge, and that we just got to glean in just a few moments of time. And I wanted to open up just for a few moments and do this practice that we do at the end of our time together, which is to anchor in that which we're taking away. What are we taking home with us, both in the literal part, both in the literal knowledge, but also in that greater metaphorical sensibility? You know, one of the pieces, and as you speak out loud, what you're wanting to make sure you're taking away, you're helping all of us anchor that in. We're all able to catch certain arrows that Alika threw out to us today. And one of the pieces I'm just really taking away is that how long it takes to create real alchemy. You know, the 4 days of time, the making sure that it's outside, that there's breathing space, you know, that less is more, you know. And I'm even thinking about that as a farmer, but also as in a learning environment. Like, how much time does it take for us to create alchemy as a group, you know, and raising children, small, less, give them space, you know. So I'm just taking those metaphors in.
If I can jump in and say thank you for that reminder. And you know, on our farm, we greatly welcome the children, especially around planting of seeds. I mean, I've taken 20, 40, 50 kids all at once, and I enjoy it because they hold innocence. They hold the spirit of innocence. And so when they hold that seed and they put that seed into the soil or the potting pot for seedlings, it's innocence meeting innocence. And so I always welcome the children coming on the farm because, yeah, more hands to plant thousands of seeds, but it's allowing the meaning of innocence and letting the seed flourish, letting it sprout. That's innocence. So I always welcome the kids on the farm and extra hands, and we get a lot more done, but with sense.
Just saying, I'm deeply, profoundly grateful. I had no idea I would receive so much, right? I raise my hand to that. And thank you for sharing your wisdom and your infectious spirit. Elisa Van Treese says, thank you much, Alika, and ancestors and descendants. And Catherine is saying, you have anchored in the sacredness. Thank you. And Chi-Chi's reminding us that there's a time to sow and a time to reap.
Yes, yes. And very, you know, in all things, you know, we must always be vigilant and must always be diligent in, you know, it's hard. It's a hard, especially with modern contemporary practices around us and the energies of that, to go enter into the sacred world of the natural world. And the birds know. When I walk on the land and I don't hear the birds chirping, they're telling me something's not balanced, something's not. So, you know, I sit in the back and I hear all the different species of the birds communicating. And you know, with this COVID situation, you know, I think the animals, the birds, the fish, they love it.
They do.
They're multiple abundance. They're coming near the shoreline.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, they know that Maui doesn't have tourists, you know, so they're right up on the shoreline, you know, big fish. And so these are, you know, it's a statement that nature, it's a weird way that we had to take a pandemic to tell us, pause where we're at. And what is just as important is to know what is our target. Where are we going? We know where we come from. We know where we are today. But what is the target? Yeah. For me, I strongly believe that The knowledge of our ancestors is the way. We must learn from the ways of the past to be able to prepare us moving forward. This is the pause. This is the reset. This is not about just economics. It's about relooking at how we have operated. For us out here, I'm affiliated with a group called Maui Third Wave. You're welcome to go check us out. I'm also affiliated with Hina, Hawaiian Indigenous Natural Agriculture. And so we're pushing this way of creating Hina. Hina is Hina, which is Hawaiian Indigenous Natural Agriculture. Hina is also the name of the goddess, the moon goddess. And the energy of the lunar cycle is centered around her. But, it's us to move forward. And so I say, we must create this aloha paradigm shift. And aloha meaning full of love. And we must change it. Even in the economic world, we must change. And even for us here in the state, in Hawaii, we're now at a level they're saying at 90 to 92% of all the food we eat comes in on a barge, comes and being imported. 90 to 92%. We were an island where we consumed 100% on island. To now we flipped it to relying on 90% coming in from a land, from a person that we don't even know. We don't know the DNA of the food, who grew it, where the seed came from. We're trying to change that and say we can grow the food we eat here on the island. So we have a big movement, and we're trying to push forward, and just pushing the knowledge and awareness and practices, procedures and protocols of natural farming.
And I really want to suggest, I'm going to include links to the organizations that Alika works with. And Alika has been just an extraordinary leader in the GMO movement and really keeping the gardens and the planting ways protected on these islands. And I really can't strongly suggest enough what it might be to feel involved and connected by giving in the ways that you can to his organizations. So if you feel the call to get involved, by all means, I think that they could use our support, especially when there are less tourists coming to these islands. If this culture is something that you really care about and you want to continue to support, maybe not through visiting there and giving them your tourist dollars, but by supporting their gardens or the work that they're doing to protect against GMOs, I will include links to that in the replay email. And maybe you want to share it with your friends. This is a small group of us today, but you can amplify this message and this opportunity.
You mentioned GMO. We recently had a court case versus Monsanto. I was one of the 5 citizens that initiated a citizens initiative ballot that went onto the election ballot, and the people of Maui County voted whether we wanted to continue to have genetically engineered practices creating GMO products. It's not about the GMO. I was more against the genetic engineering practices that they applied in creating the GMO. To create that, they bombard these plants with toxic chemicals every day. Some of our warriors who snuck onto the perimeter of the property of Monsanto's farm was able to take a snapshot picture of their spray record for that 100-acre field. And on the record we saw, it was a 2-week spray record. On one day, they sprayed 8 chemicals. The very next day, 8 more chemicals. The very next day, 8 more chemicals.
the very next day. So they sprayed 8 times 8 times 8 times 8, 10 straight days. Exponentially, what chemical did you create that's in the air and exposing us with that chemical drift, getting it into the soil? What happened, personal experience, 2006 December, January 2007, I was coaching a group of kids for high school paddling. I had 100 kids. We trained by paddling in the ocean. There was about 4 days of big storms, big rains, all came down. It flooded Monsanto's fields. Monsanto's chemical barrels were floating. All of the fields, chemicals included, all washed down into the stream. The stream washed down to our ocean, busted the sand berm, so it spilled all into our bay of where we paddle. That's not only a place where people of Maui go and recreate, it's a place where we gather food, we go diving for fish, gather seaweed. Well, all that chemical got washed out into that bay. The very first day and the second day, we smelt chemicals, strong chemical smells. Kids they were getting headaches while paddling. I said, get out of the water. This is not safe, it's toxic. By the third, fourth, fifth day, everything smelt, rotting, death. Every fish in the bay was floating. Everything was dead from their chemicals. Every day, the Department of Health worker would come and test the waters in the morning, test the waters in the afternoon. So every day I would communicate, hey, is it safe for our kids? He goes, no, not safe. Don't go in the water. It was like a week, 10 days. We were training on land. I got 100 kids that want to paddle, but they can't go in the ocean. We got to train on land. And it took us 10 days before we got the alls clear. Fast forward 10 years later, we're in the fight against Monsanto, trying to stop them with their restricted use pesticides. And I testify to that event happening. They go to the record books, the State Department of Health, nothing existed. Testing, no nothing. Yeah. So that's how powerful they are. They're able to infiltrate our own government's files, records. So we took them to court. It just so happened that my name starts with an A. So if you go up and Google the case with Monsanto, just by chance, my name starts with an A. So it becomes Alika Atay and et al. Versus Monsanto. We were victorious. They pled guilty, but yet we still have to watch them every day. My goal is to get them off our land. By them pleading guilty, they've pled that they did create ethnogenocide of our people, exposing our children and our elders to their chemical drift. It's the fight is still on, and we're still moving forward. Meanwhile, my job is focused to just grow food and medicine well.
Thank you, Alika. So grateful for you and for all that you've given to us and all the generosity. I'm wondering how we close. Is there a closing chant or a prayer for the oceans, or how, or we could just say goodbye? What feels like the best way to end our time today?
Ipule. Enatua aiutu mauyokama enatuna kuna kahiko mauyokama mahalo ke akua mahalo kupuna Mahalo na awa. Mahalo this opportunity to share the ike, or the wisdom and knowledge of our ancestors. Mahalo to all those who have emptied their cup so that they may be able to receive more. We ask at this time to bless all the children of the world. Bless all of humanity to continue in your guidance with aloha. We know that our answer for the world is aloha. And so with that, we go, continue on, carrying this of love. Mahalo kea. Until again, we say ahui ho, which means I will see you again. Aloha.
Everyone off mute, and we can say our farewells and gratitudes one last time.